All right, so actually closing a note deal. So this is the other area, right, that's a little bit different. And I'm going to show kind of two different workflows. The traditional closing in the note industry is kind of the Wild West, and it's very important that you know your seller and you kind of know who they are. So typically, note transactions don't go through escrow or a title company like a traditional real estate transaction. Basically, usually what happens is you've made your offer, you've agreed to some price, you've done your deep dive due diligence, you're ready to proceed. And at this point, there will be a loan sale agreement that both parties will sign. And then the buyer wires the funds directly to the seller. And then the seller will do two things. They'll tell their loan servicer to transfer the loan to you, and then they'll ship you the hard collateral file. And this is done all the time, and it works okay. A lot of people are kind of freaked out by this because you're wiring funds to somebody, and what happens if they don't transfer the loan, right? Or they don't ship you the collateral. That's obviously a risk. So it is sort of the Wild West. I do this all the time, but I know my sellers and they're people that I've worked with and trusted. However, what I consider kind of the newer model is what paperstack.com is doing. So they're an online platform for selling loans, and I mentioned this in the section where you can find places to buy. It's definitely a place I like going to, and I think their method is the way of the future. So this is a little more traditional, right? So in the PaperStack system, they have a really detailed checklist that they go through, and I'm not going to talk about the whole thing here. But basically, instead of wiring funds directly to the seller, you're wiring funds to escrow. They have an auditor that they use, and so the seller then ships. So the buyer wires the funds to escrow. The seller ships the hard file to their auditor. The auditor verifies that everything's included in the file. The file is clean. And so at that point, they initiate the loan transfer. They wire the funds to the seller, and then they ship the hard collateral to the buyer. So this is a lot more protected. This saves you from if you run into a some kind of bad actor who doesn't ship you the collateral or doesn't ship you all the collateral, you run into some kind of a problem that way. I think this is really the wave of the future. It costs an extra couple $100 to do this. I think it's well worth it. I think it's just kind of the right way to do things, but I use the traditional method all the time with people that I know, and it's not uncommon to do that. Although it's also not unreasonable. Let's say you're just doing this between two people and maybe you don't know them as well, to ask to set up escrow. It's not done a lot, and a lot of people will push back, but I think that's a very, very reasonable ask.